Hi everybody, welcome back to the Introduction to Climate Change course. In our penultimate, meaning second to last episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about climate solutions. Now, in the last episode, we covered some individual choices that we make, carbon footprints, as in how much do we affect the planet as individuals. But now we want to talk more big picture stuff because, as I'm sure you know, climate change is a big problem, and so we can't just make small choices as individuals. We actually are going to need to change the world around us, right? So and one of the biggest areas to focus on is energy. Now, currently we use fossil fuels for energy, and they're called fossil fuels because they are dug up from the ground like fossils, and when we need to burn them for energy, and then when we burn them, we emit carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, and that is the greenhouse gas effect, which is warming up the earth. So renewable energy looks to fix that because it is a type of energy that doesn't emit any carbon, and we can just hop right into it and ask, what is renewable energy? So renewable energy is energy that is generated from sources that never run out. So that's why it's called renewable. And some examples are sun, wind, and flowing water. And these are probably the most common types of renewable energy in the world. Lots of houses have solar panels. There's a lot of windmills in certain parts of the country. And I'm sure you have seen a dam before, which is an example of water energy. Now, why should we use renewable energy? Well, renewable energy doesn't require burning of fossil fuels. Another word for that is combustion, which means burning something for the energy. And so it doesn't emit carbon dioxide. So it provides energy for us, but it doesn't also pollute the planet, which is the main problem with fossil fuels. And we can start off going a little bit deeper into the examples that we pointed out. So to start off, solar power. To talk about solar power, we need to talk about solar panels, right? So solar power converts sunshine into electricity using solar panels. Now, in these solar panels, the science is pretty complicated. But there's these things called solar cells. So then when the rays of sunshine are hitting the panel, or particles of light, it hits those solar cells and it turns that into electricity. And solar panel power works best in areas that get a lot of sunshine, right? So in areas like the Midwest and the West, where there's a lot of flat area with a lot of sunshine to hit solar panels, you can generate a lot of electricity. And the good part about solar energy is that these solar panels they're flat and they fit on really in a lot of different areas. So they're some of the best to put on your house. There's a lot of houses that have solar panels on the roofs, and it's really efficient for meeting the needs of one house, because a lot of people who get solar panels, they are more expensive than normal energy up front, but over time they generate a lot more electricity than you actually use. And so there's a lot of people who have solar panels and their electricity bill is actually negative, meaning that they are being paid by the state or the city because they're generating electricity for them, and that goes to other people. Now, wind energy is a little bit different. It is more traditional, as in it involves a turbine, and pretty much everything but solar power involves some sort of turbine. And a turbine is, without getting too deep into the science of it, it is something with magnets that when you force it to spin, the magnets moving around will create electricity. And so wind, a lot of the types of ways to get energy is ways to get a turbine to spin. Now, what wind energy does is uses wind to get it to spin, and this means that you need to catch the wind with these blades to get it to spin. And the best areas for windmills are because they're big and harder to install than solar panels. You see it less on houses, but you can still power a lot of places. For example, Texas has a lot of windmills, and they work best in areas that are pretty flat and get a lot of wind. And the best areas for windmills are actually slightly hilly, because those hills are going to force the wind through the hills and it'll be stronger. It's kind of like a funnel effect, right? And lastly, let's talk about hydroelectric energy, or hydroelectric power. And since hydro means water, we're just talking about energy generated from water. Now, a great example of this type of energy would be dams. Dams are these big walls like you see in this picture that block the flow of water, and by doing so they build up all that pressure, right? Because it's like holding off the water, and it rises. The level of water rises. And then when you make a little hole through the dam, like in this picture, then because you have so much water on this side and not a lot on the other side, it falls through with a lot of force. And that force is used to turn a turbine, right? So you're taking water that is pretty still, but then by making a dam, you are using gravity to make the water flow. And dams are pretty common all around the country. They're usually great, obviously, in places that have like a big source of water, like a river, and that have like mountains, because you are going to need a deep like sea level, I guess, or you're going to have it. It has to be deep, right? So it can't just be shallow water like streams. And the dams are great because they also control flooding, and they have other positive benefits on the environment as long as they are built well and they don't interfere with the ecosystem of the area that much. Now, after exploring these renewable energies, let's talk about fossil fuels, right? So what's so bad about fossil fuels in the first place? Why do we need to replace them? Well, the thing about fossil fuels is, as I said in the introduction, you need fossil fuels to power the energy, right? And so, like in this diagram, which we don't need to really know that much about it. We just need to focus on the first two steps, is that you need things like coal. In other places, oil also will heat up a furnace, and that furnace is what gets water to turn into steam. And so, like you might know in science class, when you heat something up, when you turn water into a gas, you are making the particles move faster. So when it's steam, it's expanding and it's moving faster, and that's the force that is used to make the turbine spin. Now, the good thing about fossil fuels, and the reason that they're so popular and so common today, is that they make a lot of energy, and they are with very common materials, and they don't really depend on other factors, right? So anywhere, like the sun or the wind, anywhere can really get coal, and anywhere can get water to build a power plant. The problem, obviously, is that they emit carbon dioxide, and that's not good for the environment. And although they are a good energy source, when you don't consider that, the important part to consider is the effects on the environment, because that's something that people are not really like paying for, and that's something that people don't pay attention to up until this point, right? Now that we know that the earth is warming so much and we have to stop this. And so how can renewable energy help solve climate change? Well, like we said, it can replace a big part of our emissions by energy, and because energy is everywhere. So the best place to start is probably with electricity, energy, how we power our world. Now, we are still missing more things because, for example, we covered the different ways that we emit carbon dioxide a bit ago. We still need to figure out a good way to power cars, to raise animals and grow food and transport it, and to fly around in planes, for example, right? Those are some areas that we still are missing, innovation, and we're still missing some advancements to really be able to be carbon free, to not emit carbon dioxide. But like we said, energy is a very important starting point. And in the next lesson, we're going to talk about activism and what you can do to help drive these climate solutions, and your role in solving climate change. Because although you can't install solar panels, you can still help make them more popular and still help encourage our representatives to install them, for example. Now, one last thing I want to share is that there is a quiz in the Extend Your Journey section to calculate your carbon footprint. And this is a really fun activity to do. It's a fun website. Now, some things to note is that, one, you might need help answering some of the questions if it's asking you about the size of your house, the type of house or area you live in, right? And you don't have to answer anything you don't feel comfortable answering. You can just guess if you don't know. And also, the goal of this is not to make you feel bad. The goal of this is to show, that one, pretty much everybody is using more than their fair share of resources, and we're going to need to make collective sacrifice to solve climate change. Now, with that, I'll end off this lesson, and I'll see you for our final lesson for what you can do about climate change.